Welcome to video 4 in the Cybersecurity Lab 2026 version. So in this video, what we're going to do is install Windows 11. Now you may be asking yourself, why are we installing Windows 11 when we have not completed the configuration for pfSense? And the reason why is we're going to use the browser on this Windows 11 VM to access the web GUI for pfSense to finish our configuration. So first we're going to install Windows 11, and then in the next video we'll complete our configuration of pfSense. So now we're going to install a Windows 11 virtual machine. So go to the link in the walkthrough. It will take you to Microsoft.com, and then you go to the downloads, and we want to select the 64-bit enterprise download. Make sure you select the enterprise download. Once again, we want to check with modern Windows systems that the download is actually taking place, and it is. So this is a relatively large ISO file to download. It's 6.6 gigabytes. So we'll pause the video while this continues to download. All right, so we've finished downloading. We'll check to confirm. We see it is downloaded. So now we have our Windows 11 ISO downloaded. We'll jump back over to VirtualBox, and we're going to select New for a new virtual machine. And once again, I'm naming mine. I'm starting with 2026 so I can keep track of my virtual machines. And then it's just going to be Windows 11. Under VM folder, once again, I'm saving all my virtual machines to a folder on my F drive. And now I can navigate to where that ISO image is. That's what we just downloaded. So this is the ISO image. If we expanded that out, you can see the .iso. Then I'll go ahead and select it. So this auto-populated the operating system for me, so I don't have to do anything there. I do want to deselect the proceed with unintended installation because I want to do it manually. So we go down, we can skip the setup unintended, and we can go down to setting our hardware choices. So by default for Windows 11, it's going to give us 4 gigabytes of RAM into CPU. I'm just going to stick with that. That should be fine. I do want to make sure EFI is selected, which it is required for Windows 11. And as far as disk space, 80 gigabytes is fine. I'm just going to keep that at 80. We're not going to pre-allocate, and we're not going to split the disk up. We're just going to go straight like this. We're not going to hit any of those other options, and we can select Finish. Now, just like we did with pfSense, we need to go to Settings before we start it. In Settings, if we looked at the boot device orders, because we're using EEFI, these are going to be grayed out, so we don't need to worry about those. We're not going to do anything with the display or the storage. For audio, if you want to, you can disable it. It's not going to make that big of a difference. Then we go to network. So we're going to use our Windows machine is going to be on that LAN network, which was LAN 0. So we're going to go from NAT to internal network, and then choose LAN 0. Because this is a Windows machine, we're using that Intel adapter type. That's all we need to do for the additional settings for the Windows 11 VM. We can go ahead and select OK, and we're ready to start it. Now, the reason we set, once again, the network settings LAN 0. So remember on pfSense, we set up 3 different adapters, the WAN, and then what became the LAN and OPT but basically it's LAN 0 and LAN 1, which will be our subnets that we will be using in our lab. So for the rest of the adapters, we're not going to enable them. So keep them blank. Do not enable them. So we just have the one adapter, internal network, and LAN 0. So once we've done that, we can select Start. And this will be just like if you've installed Windows on a computer system at home. It will be, go ahead and select any key when you get that option. That's almost like a race condition. You need to select it really quick or else you're going to have to restart it. We can go ahead and just X out of those. And I'm just going to use English settings. And a US keyboard. I am installing Windows 11. And I agree that this will delete any files, apps, or settings. Then select Next. And once again, you want to review the license and terms. And once you've read that entire thing, I'm sure you can go ahead and select Accept. Now the disk that shows up is the disk that we just created, the 80 gigabyte. We can just select Next. And we can go ahead and then select Install. Now the rest is pretty simple. It may take some time, as Windows does, but if you've done this before on a physical machine, it's the same way. I will go ahead and pause this as it completes the installation. Now it will restart a couple times, so I'll try to capture that in the video so that you can see at what point that happens. Okay, as you can see, Windows is restarting for the first time after it went through the installation process. All this is happening automatically. So now it's going to continue installing. And I'll go ahead and pause the video again, but I just wanted to capture this part so that you would know what to expect. Okay, once again, it restarted at about 90-some%, and it looks like it's starting up now. And I'll go ahead and pause it again until it needs some input from us. Okay, so after that part of the installation is done, now we can just configure it. So I'm configuring this for the United States. The US keyboard. Skip the second keyboard layout. And this is all your preference. At this point, we want to put I do not have internet, because what it will try to do is get you to connect to your Microsoft account. So you enter your name here. You could assign it any name you want. For the exercise purposes, I'm just going to name this Philip Price. Then give it a password. Make sure you keep track of what that password is. Now, this is a lab, so it's up to you. It's probably good practice to go ahead and set up a complicated password. However, you're going to have multiple machines and multiple passwords to remember, so do whatever works for you. And then you'll be prompted to confirm the password, and then you can set your security questions. I'm going to just give the security questions to the same answer. I'm just going to call password 1 on all the security questions. And that just makes it easy. Obviously, you would not do this in a production environment, but it just makes it easier to remember everything. I'm going to turn all this information off. And it will go ahead and complete its configuration. Once again, sometimes this can take some time, so I'm going to pause the recording. All right, so it's completed, and now we have our Windows 11. We have the user, Philip Price. So now what we want to do is install the Guest Edition CD. So under Devices, select Insert Guest Edition CD. Now we see that Guest Edition CD. Let's double click that. And what we want to run is the VirtualBox Editions AMD 64, the VirtualBox Windows Editions AMD 64. Don't get confused by the ARM 64 right below it. We want to run that as administrator. We'll select yes. Select next on all these options. And this really just enhances the user experience. As I mentioned before, you can copy and paste and go full screen mode. And it's asking if you want to reboot now. Select yes. Finish. So the virtual machine is going to reboot. And when it reboots, we should be able to go to full screen mode. There you go. So if we go full screen, give it the password. Now, sometimes it needs a little help going full screen. So just grab the corner and then pull it back out. And when you see the screen start flashing, then that means you're going to be able to go to full screen. This just makes it easier when you're working with the virtual machine. So one other thing I'll note is we go back to our settings for the Windows 11. Under features, what you want to do is you could go bi-directional. And what this will allow you to do is copy and paste stuff into the virtual machine and vice versa. Now, if we're running malware in these virtual machines, we want to disable that. But you'll see as we go through some of the lessons, all the commands will be in the walkthrough, and it's a lot easier to copy them from the walkthrough and paste them into the machine. That way you're not retyping everything. So that is how you set up the copy and paste from your host to your virtual machine and vice versa. But before that will work, you will need to install the guest editions like we just did. So at this point, what we could do is now go back to our Windows machine. So now what we can do, just to make sure everything's working right, is we can pull up a command prompt and we want to check our IP address. And you see we get an IP address of 10.0.1.11. So that is right in that DHCP range that we set up for this network segment. Now, if you are not getting an IP address, or if the IP address is a 169 and then some other numbers, then the DHCP is not working correctly, which most likely the common cause is pfSense is not running. So check to make sure pfSense is running. You see that it is. You could also check from VirtualBox Manager and see that it's running. But make sure, remember, it's getting the IP address from pfSense. So if pfSense is not running, it's not going to get an IP address. Now, what we can also do is sort of check our network connectivity from our Windows machine and see if we can ping 8.8.8. That is Google's DNS server. So it's always a good IP address to see if you have network connectivity, and we see that we do. So at this point, our Windows 11 machine is installed. It has a network connection. It's getting the IP address from pfSense. So what we'll do in the next lesson is we're going to use our Windows 11 machine, and we're going to use a browser, and we're going to finish configuring pfSense through its web interface.